Today, we're going to talk about something that sneaks up into all of us. Those quiet, very powerful thoughts that whisper to us that maybe we're not ready, or why would anyone believe in us, or what do I have to say about that topic? Why would someone listen to me? We want to talk carefully about identifying self-doubt and how we can overcome that. This episode is for you.
Welcome back to Smarter Wealth. This is the podcast where we talk about real life. We talk about real change and how to navigate it all without losing our minds. Beth, we are so excited to have you back today. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
It's an honor.
You know, you are absolute family around here, and it is such a joy to be able to sit around the table with a woman that has no judgment, and we can just talk about what's real, what we're going through, and what we think about it.
Thank you so much. I am judging, but only myself.
Well, now, hey, let's just start there, right?
Let's start there.
As we sit here preparing for our conversation, we're already wondering if what we're going to say is going to be what everybody else needs to hear, if it's going to come out perfect. And let's just identify that it's not going to be perfect.
I even love that we can have that conversation before we have our intentional conversation to kind of out ourselves and take the nerves down and maybe normalize that this is just indeed a human experience, what we're going to talk about today.
That's refreshing, and I'm so glad you said it, because even though we're talking about some of those bad thoughts that we have in our head, or the bad things we might say to each other, no matter how polished we think we are or how much we have worked on this personally, they still creep up. And They're creeping up today.
Now, lifetime.
Yeah.
So you can't get any more authentic than that.
Yeah. So welcome to the mess.
Yes.
Right?
Let it be messy.
Yeah.
Let it be messy.
Well, there's growth in messy. That's what we know. So we're going to dive into this idea of the scarcity statement and what that means. So let's just start there. Let's break that down.
So a scarcity statement is essentially a self-narrative that is deeply rooted in childhood, more likely than not. Mm-hmm. And we have significant influences that shape the way we see ourselves in the world. And those statements are in a negative form, and they are deep, and they are intense, and we feel as though they are our truth. And what they aim to do is keep us in a place that will hopefully one day arrive at a place of love, safety, and acceptance. The problem is that that's a false narrative, that the way in which this mindset sends us a message that we're not enough, just as we are, who we show up as, that we're not enough, that we aren't doing enough, that we don't deserve, fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And that narrative will impact how we see ourselves in the world, how we see ourselves in relationships. It will impact our emotional regulation, and ultimately that will then impact our behaviors and actions in the world.
So you said safety, and it feels like no matter what we're doing, we're trying to be safe. In whatever relationship we're in, we're seeking safety. All too often, I feel, and I can speak from a personal place, but I think all too often I seek safety in a multitude of relationships. And in my past, I think some of those relationships have been very unhealthy, but it was this weird place of comfort, even though it wasn't healthy. But for some godforsaken reason, it brought me safety because it was comfortable, which creates that rotunda of negativity and negative thoughts.
And that's why the mindset is even there. That's why it is in existence for all humans, Because if we are just looking for acceptance and safety, emotional safety and otherwise, then we will do and act and believe about ourselves and others accordingly so that we get that achieved. But let's think about in childhood, that might look like a child who does not want to overstep lest they rock a boat, or they disappoint, or they let someone down. So they learn to subjugate their voice so that they don't disappoint mom or dad or upset them, or they decide they will take that course in school because that's what mom and dad suggested would be the right thing to do. And so they will deny and sacrifice their own needs in order for the parents to be pleased. And so then as that child grows up into adolescence and young adulthood, that belief will get affirmed along the way. And then the brain says, duly noted, this is how I receive love, acceptance, and safety. And so I will continue those patterns through adulthood until I get to a place where I recognize it no longer serves me. It never served me in a healthy way. It did in the setup of the dysfunction as I learned them in childhood.
Sure. God, I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine, and she has suffered from ADHD her whole life. And she was talking about as a kid that she was always the problem. She was always the problem kid. She was always the problem. And she's roughly, our age. And back then, there's a lot less help for kids with ADHD than there is now. But she's seeing those same signs in her daughter. And she said, it is such a shift in how do I just deal with this child versus how do I help this child? So she's leaning into, her daughter's quite young, but she's really trying to change that narrative for her daughter as a not quite middle-aged woman, but how that is truly affecting her still today, that she's the problem.
Absolutely.
Believing that if something goes wrong in a work situation, in her personal life, the immediate initial response is, what did I do wrong?
Well, and bringing up ADHD in any sort of neurodivergence, what we will typically see in children and in adulthood is a concept. This is not a diagnosis, but a concept of feeling as though I am already behind from the moment I wake up in the morning. I don't know what I don't know. What do you know that I don't know? Why are you all getting this homework assignment completed and I haven't begun? Why can't I do this like everyone else? And so the concept of rejection sensitive dysphoria suggests that any criticism or perceived criticism that a child or an adult receives, when they already feel that they are never going to be good enough, never going to be status quo, never going to be like their peers, then any perceived criticism from an external source can cause tremendous distress emotionally. So in children, you'll see tantrums. In adults, you'll see adult tantrums. In the South, we call them come-aparts. And this is where we look dysregulated, and it does not seem fitting to the situation.
Yeah.
But when you come from a baseline that says, I woke up not having done the things, not able to achieve the things, not smart enough, not quick enough, not capable enough, and then I receive any sort of incoming information that affirms that belief. So, and I think even for those who don't have to navigate the ADHD world, I think that we are constantly in the game of comparison. And I know that we can, to a large degree, thank social media and the internet and the immediate access that we have, and filters and the things that influence who we are supposed to show up as in the world, and how significant that is for young girls, young women, even women our age, constant comparison. And it's because this narrative has been on the loop for much of our life. Yeah. And it gets affirmed over and over again. And then we say to ourselves, well, this must be true then. But interestingly enough, what we are doing is we are actually seeking out the things that will confirm the beliefs that we already have on board. Mm. So that might be in the form of conversations, that might be in the form of relationships, anything that can affirm the narrative that already exists in my mind about me. I will seek those out. So you talk about the comfort of being in relationships or in situations that don't serve us, and yet there is safety there that is over and over in the data. It's just a human experience to navigate to what we know, because in that known, no matter how chaotic it might be or dysfunctional it might be, in that chaos and in that environment, we find safety.
Oh, we could probably spend a whole another 45 minutes on that alone. So scarcity statements in particular, what are some of the common statements that you hear?
That I'm not enough, that I'm not deserving, that it's not for me. Mm-hmm. And when we explore into these narratives, we will 10 out of 10 times find that these were rooted in some influence or influences in childhood. Mm-hmm. And those become so deeply rooted in our own narrative that at some point it's no longer that person's a critical mother, an absent father, a teacher, someone in authority or leadership. It's no longer their voice. It becomes our own voice. And so the struggle in adulthood then would be to clean that narrative up once we're able to identify it. But because it's our own voice, it feels true. Yeah. Therefore, it must be true. One of the things that I see a lot in women is that they just don't feel that they are deserving of, and then fill in the blank, a second chance, a do-over, the right for it to look messy, the right to make a mistake, to learn and grow in failure. And I will pitch the question, would you say that to a loved one, a girlfriend, your daughter? Of course not.
Never.
And I will always respond with, we don't get to make the rules up for just ourselves then. Because what we would allow for someone else, we must allow for us as well. And if we are making up rules, it's a good indication that we have a narrative and a belief system that at one point in time or another did serve us, or we would not have utilized it. Maybe it kept us physically safe. Maybe it allowed us to get accolades and praise. But as we're growing and stretching into healthy adulthood, we recognize that it no longer serves us. So if we're making up rules that we would not apply to others, this is the negative narrative. This is where we start.
Yeah, that's so good. So if we're starting to question those narratives, that's a core question we can look in the mirror and ask ourselves, would I say this to my daughter?
It's a great one-liner that allows you to instantly challenge what might you be doing at this moment that would cause you to default back into a narrative that no longer serves you.
Yeah. Yeah, your best friend. I mean, you think about a million different people in your life, whoever it is, and you're having a conversation and they say, I want to try this thing, but I'm not sure how it's going to look, or I'm not sure if it'll look good on me, or whatever that is. And 9 times out of 10, we are so full of encouragement, right? Unless we know them really well and that hairstyle is not going to look good on them. Let's just be honest. Hey, I love you very much.
Truth.
You don't do bangs.
Yes.
Or sister, you need bangs. Yes. There are loving conversations like that, but right. But all too often as friends and moms, women, whatever, we are full of encouragement for one another, as we should be. And if we are going to be full of encouragement for someone else when they ask us an honest question, we should be doing the same for ourselves. That's what I hear you say.
It's the way to live our most authentic life. Yeah. And if we would not say or think or believe about a loved one, how we say or believe about ourselves, then that's an opportunity to explore and be curious. Mm-hmm. If you hear yourself saying, what do I need to be? Or what do I need to do to be enough? That is the scarcity statement. That is the negative narrative, that I do not show up inherently with worth and value. It must be earned, and these are the following things I need to be and do in order to finally arrive. The problem with these narratives is that you never arrive because they are not performative based. There are no measures we can take to finally achieve the pinnacle of self-worth or the pinnacle of value in someone else's eyes.
Yeah.
So using those statements are often great indicators that that's where the work might need to be explored.
So the idea that when we put out a negative self-worth, other people pick that up. And I feel that sometimes we can be treated differently because of that.
Well, and that's in keeping with the conversation surrounding safety in familiar. So just as I might be a people pleaser, and if I show up and not disappoint you, I find safety in that, I will attract those who need people pleasers in their lives. And so a dependency gets fostered, but then my belief gets affirmed that my value is in helping the other person, not saying no, subjugating my needs so that they can get theirs met. And then everyone's belief about themselves is affirmed and confirmed. And so that's how these patterns continue throughout our lifetime until we recognize it and begin to challenge that.
Which innately just causes extreme stress inside our own body and produces itself in countless.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about a little bit later about the role of brain chemistry and then the overall toll that it can take on our bodies over time. And we have to remember that self-doubt is like a feedback loop that is fueling this negative self-narrative. And we need people in our lives to affirm that narratives, because the goal and our aim in doing so is to find safety. The sadness is that that's not where safety lies.
I feel like I need to hear that statement on, like, that could be
on loop.
Yeah.
We need that to be the loop. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think then that naming that changes everything?
So in my humble belief, naming anything is always going to be the starting place. I think that once we're able to name something, there's so much value in being able to recognize patterns, and then we get to choose what healthy coping strategy, what tool can we dig around in our toolbox and find that will fit for that particular situation or need, because we've been able to identify it and understand how it shows up in our life in adulthood.
Yeah. It changes everything.
I'm grateful for neuroplasticity, which is the ability to retrain the brain. I would be lost without the ability to retrain our brain. It is never too late. Much of my hard personal work has only happened in the last 4 to 5 years.
Yeah. That makes me think about the one of my favorite books by Dr. Daniel, and then Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. And he talks about that greatly, and how starting to change the loop changes the neural pathway. And he says something very similar in the book. I'm just going to paraphrase, but if you think about the ridges in a brain, like physically thinking about what a brain looks like, and you see the ridges, if you think about those as your neural pathways and how hard it would be to change the path in that deep, deep divot, but by starting small and having certain positive comments that you do tell yourself, you're starting a new divot, you're starting a new path. And visualizing that has made a huge difference for me. Like thinking about the physical alteration of my brain with some of these alternative, positive ways of thinking, that's helped, I think, change my own brain.
I love that. And how fascinating is it that we can, over time, recreate new narratives that truly change the brain? Amazing. There's a book by Dr. Andrew Newberg, and it's called Words Can Change Your Brain. And he goes into the science of positive, affirming words and statements. When they evaluated under MRI and different tests, that they saw literal changes in the brain. And the chemistry is the production of dopamine and serotonin. So we have the pleasure and the reward and the motivation chemical, and then we have the regulation and the sense of settling and content. And those two chemicals working together to bring harmony to not only our brain, but to our entire body. All of our organs need these particular chemicals to function well and to be in a regulated state. Negative words in all of the testing revealed high spikes of cortisol, which is the stress hormone. And as we know, over time, that will wreak havoc on our physical body and our outlook and cause kind of chronic dysregulation. So there are power in words. It's not a silly cliche. And I think part of the work, once we name the things that we are seeing as patterns in our lives, we will have the opportunity then to begin to retrain our brain. And it can start with one word. Just one word can change the brain chemistry. And then we can focus on habit reformation through positive affirmations, positive conversations with others. Positive connection requires oxytocin, and positive connection and conversation with others can influence the speakers and the listeners' brains as well. So even your influences from day to day, who you're spending time with, who you're listening to, it is also impacting your brain chemistry.
It's amazing.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So surround yourself with people that you adore and that are supportive and that you might want to emulate in some sense, right? That are doing great things, that are inspiring to you, that are supportive of you.
And you to them. And in that that symbiotic exchange allows our brain chemistry to produce the chemicals necessary to have whole body regulation. Otherwise, we are engaging in conversations and relationships and connections with others that might do harm over time to our physical body.
You know, that makes me actually think about something I was just reading, and on a professional, on the professional side in our work environment, a lot of us are on a computer screen all day long on calls and talking to people virtually. And this person was talking about a study that named that oxytocin can even be produced by eye contact in a virtual environment.
I love that.
Yeah. So you don't have to always be in physical space, or we also know that more oxytocin is produced when you have physical touch, if you are with your partner or a child or a friend. And that really spoke a lot to me, because there all too often, in a lot of my work, I am on the phone, or I am over the computer with so many people, and it's hard to make connections sometimes with someone in a virtual setting. And so by turning on your camera, right, like in a virtual meeting, making sure you have a camera on, and trying to give that healthy percentage of eye contact, right? I mean, it's weird if it gets too much, but you definitely want roughly 70% of eye contact in a meeting, and that helps produce oxytocin to give the other person you're talking to more connection with you.
Well, and that is in keeping with the literature that we've seen post-COVID about telehealth and telemedicine, and that the outcomes suggest that there is equal satisfaction for both parties, and in some studies even more, because you can create genuine and authentic connections over video, and I think it's good to be able to see that we can influence one another in a positive way, even remotely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know there are a ton of therapy opportunities with therapists all across the country via telehealth, which really, that is an added bonus for anyone that is looking for a therapist or maybe hasn't found one in their community, or a multitude of reasons.
It was birthed mostly out of the pandemic, and when everyone was quarantined and we were isolated, and there was a significant need for connection. And now that post-COVID, that has stabilized, and we are for the most part back into our regular day-to-day routines, what we now see is that it is beneficial for those with limited abilities, those with driving limitations, various illnesses or things that might keep them from being able to come into an office, and then pure convenience in a fast-paced world. There's more of a chance and opportunity that someone will connect with their own support if they can fit it into the space for them that they've been able to carve out for themselves during the day, and do that right in the comfort either of their own home, in their car. I've seen people in various of places. We can get creative.
We can fit it in.
For sure.
Yeah, wherever we are. So talking about scarcity and how it affects our whole self, and that these beliefs don't always just live in our heads. They show up in our relationships, our careers, and how we treat our own bodies. So let's kind of dig into that a little bit.
Well, I think that we've established that the negative narrative that we have as individuals is just an adaptive strategy so that we can attempt to fit in, attempt to connect and attach with others, attempt to have a sense of belonging and feel safe and loved. And so what that will end up producing, however, is maladaptive patterns in conversations, in the way I think, in the way I behave, in the way I respond or react. And some of those can be consequential. Mm-hmm. So if I'm sitting in an office meeting and I feel that I have something really important to say, but I'm embarrassed or concerned, or I don't feel that it will be taken seriously, I might not share my thoughts. And that might impact down the road my opportunity to advance, because no one knows about the things that are transpiring in my own mind. But out of my conditioned tool that I've used based on a narrative that has been affirmed my entire life, I might then not be able to advance and move forward in my own goals and limitations. And that ends up showing up in the form of sabotaging behaviors. But not having clarity and understanding of why, I repeat those patterns over and over again, which then affirms the narrative. And I get deeper and deeper down into that place that can now begin to really impact my mood and my outlook and my connections with others.
Yeah. I mean, that's also a part of being able to be your authentic self too. When we talk about showing up as your authentic self, number one, it's the mindset shift, but I think also paying attention to your environment, whether it's a relationship or it's a work environment, if you are always feeling like you can't raise your hand and that your voice doesn't matter, that's an evaluation point.
And perhaps being my authentic self in childhood was not safe. Perhaps it was quite dangerous. And so I had to learn these adaptive strategies to get through, to avoid disappointing others, to avoid abuse, to get through. And so I made it, okay? Despite the narrative, despite the environment in which I was living, I made it. But in adulthood, we start to see that the same strategies and the same tools are no longer serving our lives. And so what does not feel safe in childhood, we have to be willing to take a risk in adulthood. Otherwise, we will begin to recreate our old dynamics in what should be our safe places: home, work, friendships, relationships, marriages.
Yeah. So let's take that to a practical space. So for anyone listening and thinking, that's me, I hear that daily. Where do we start, Beth?
I think the greatest gift we could give ourselves is to finally know that we know that we know that while those strategies served us in situations that we did get through, they are no longer necessary. There is nothing wrong with us. We are not broken. We engaged in strategies that got us through particular situations, but we are likely not in those same exact situations anymore. And we can feel and be empowered to lay down those old tools and to pick up new strategies once we name things, once we recognize patterns, once we feel the feelings associated with them. Then we can begin to challenge the narrative and retrain the brain.
Do you think of any, do you see mantras helping some people? I mean, there's so many things I think over my professional life and my adult life I've heard people doing. I personally sometimes will look in the mirror and say positive things. I was just talking to a friend earlier and he was talking about making sure he tells his daughter enough, that she is enough all the time.
The science is there.
Yeah.
Okay. The data suggests that even if we don't necessarily have full buy-in, the fact that I am speaking certain things over myself, over my life, reminding myself, reminding my brain, I am enough, I am safe, I have enough, then I am changing the brain chemistry, which then allows me to increase my confidence in myself, reach out and connect with healthy relationships. It's going to change the trajectory, and it starts with what I tell myself. So mantra, affirmations, those are powerful. They're not just hippy-dippy, my mom used to say.
Yeah.
They're not just hopeful statements. And it does not go into a place of toxic positivity, okay? We are not avoiding dealing with the dynamics that we're learning to name and identify. We're not just hoping on a wish and a prayer. We're using actual evidence-based strategies to change our mindset, which will then influence our emotional responses, that will then bring about positive change in our behaviors and actions.
Yeah. Are you a believer of putting Post-it notes all over your house or in your bathroom mirror?
Well, my ADHD is a believer in putting Post-it notes all over my house. I actually use a dry erase marker on my mirrors. And my daughter used to put, when she was younger, she would have these cards. And sometimes I would put cards in her bathroom drawers. And so as she opened it and she heard some statement in her grogginess of the morning, but I wanted that to be the first thing that she would see. Yeah. So that not only lifetime am I changing my own narrative, but hopefully I'm planting seeds for her, that this becomes the norm for her. Mm-hmm. She won't have to clean up as much as I'm doing. She'll have to clean up some, but not near what we're kind of navigating at our age today.
Yeah, I love that. My daughter Sydney does the same thing. She She has them, her bathroom mirror right above her sink. There's probably like 20 Post-it notes.
Love it.
And there's a big mixture of ones that her friends have written and that I've written. And some of them are her own Bible verses or things that she's written. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I have them all over my desk. And I also have, I love hot tea. And there's a couple of brands that have inspirational
messages.
statements.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love it.
And I have those like taped around my desk.
Why did I go to Dove chocolate? Okay. Okay. I'm just saying.
Even the
powerful
Dove chocolate.
statements. Powerful.
Yes. I love that they do that. That's super thoughtful of them.
Well, and I think it's, it's just keeping with the literature and that the positive statements and positive words will influence our thought processes, our emotional responses to the world. And so wherever we can receive that and absorb that and claim that, let's do it.
Let's do it. It changes everything, literally down to the molecular level in our body.
Literally changes everything.
Yes. Awesome, Beth. Well, I have 3 last questions for you.
Okay.
So I like to call this the lightning round of wealthy wisdom. So
let's do it. That
full
sounds
spark.
fancy. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
So tell us one thing that you do regularly to help support your own well-being.
As an introvert, I need my own time in solitude to renew. And for many, many, many years, I did not let my people know that. And so it was confusing when, as a profession, I gave out to others all day long. But the moment I got home, I would retreat into my solitude and I would need quiet and just space to be able to feel refreshed for my family. So once I used my voice to share that need, then and created a habit in doing so, that has allowed me to show up such a better human, a better mama, a better spouse, and be able then to be present for my own people.
Yeah, I love that. And that probably also lent itself to giving them permission to also speak up and say what they need for equal respect, that this is their time.
Normalizing that, utilizing your voice. And I will say to date, fast forward about 11 years from doing this, they will recommend that I go and spend a little downtime on my own and come back out when I'm refreshed. Yes. So yeah, some slight encouragement.
Yeah.
But I'll take it.
I love it. That's supportive.
I'll take it.
That's what
we'll call it that. Okay. Yes.
Even though some days you're probably like, don't tell me what I need.
I think I need that. They're getting a need met as well. So
exactly right. Great point. Okay. So number 2, what's a belief or mindset shift that's made a huge difference in your life?
So this is in more recent times. So vulnerable moment. I have not always lived in this space. There has been something about turning 50 that has allowed me to have the most radical acceptance of who I am, what I look like, how I'm showing up in the world. I'm not hiding from that. I am trying to monitor, less filter. We want to, keep tabs on that. But it's not stopping me from taking risks. So I've shared with you before that this process will bring up tons of insecurities for me, lots of doubt, impostor syndrome, the camera, and what it does, and that relationship with our own self-confidence and with our bodies, and yet the radical acceptance, which brings about radical self-love. We talked about that before. That has only come very recently, that I'm going to do the things anyway. And sadly, I spent decades not doing the things because of the narrative that was there. So that has only come very recently with perimenopause and the hormonal changes and just the reflection that it provides you of looking back and how have you shown up in the world. And I woke up on my 50th birthday with some freedom and some mouthiness, and I've loved it and I've embraced it. and it's allowing me to take risks that otherwise I would not have done.
I love that.
I find a way in now rather than finding a way out.
And let me just ask, so thinking of whatever risk or a couple of risks, have you gotten burned at the stake for those risks?
Well, not yet. Now I'm new into my 50s. Not yet. So, there's still time.
Yeah.
There's still time. But I think what I've received is more reward. This is an example. I would have kindly, in my Southern way, probably passed this by because of my own insecurities. But I'm willing to sit in this with you, and I know you're doing the same. Yes. And we're just trying to create space where hopefully our conversations can have a good impact on others and ourselves and one another. And so it's actually allowed me to be more in palms up, receive mode. Might there be opportunities where I slip and fall in my newly found risk taking? Perhaps, but I'm down.
I love it.
Let's do it.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
Yep. Join the movement. Yes.
I didn't know there was a movement, but we're ready.
We're
ready.
Creating the movement.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Let's do it.
All right. So last question to all the lovely ladies listening. If you could whisper one thing to them, what would it be?
You are enough.
Boom. Mic drop.
You are enough.
Yep.
Ooh, chills.
Write that on a Post-it note and stick that on your bathroom mirror today.
We're enough.
And when it gets splattered with toothpaste water,
get another
make another one. That's right.
Over and over and over again until you believe it.
Yep.
Because it's true.
It is true.
It's the only pathway.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you. Always inspiring to talk to you. Your voice is calming and beautiful.
Thank you.
It just helps. I think it helps soak in all the beautiful words that you say.
Well, I love the process, and I hope we can just keep doing it and keep doing it. Create our movement and normalize the conversation around healing.
Yeah, absolutely. So for anyone that wants to learn more about you and your business and what you're doing in the world, where can they find you?
So my business partner, Stacy Bankston, and I, we own Creative Counseling Center of Northwest Arkansas. And you can find us at creativenwa.com and on social media, Creative NWA. We're on there trying to make fancy little brief posts that can hopefully be inspiring and thoughtful and thought-provoking, and they can contact us through those. And if they would like to get connected with a therapist and sort of explore similar topics like we're talking about today, we're here.
Wonderful. So thanks so much for tuning in. And to learn more about Beth and her amazing power that she is shifting in this world, please go check her out. A link to her website and social media will be in the show notes. And for anyone else that wants to join the movement and be a part of this Smarter Wealth journey, please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on anywhere you get social media or podcasts. We would love to have you. And also join us on smarterwealth.com, where we will also have a lot of additional information in regards to any of our podcast episodes and lots of additional information that hopefully will help you along this beautiful wellness journey of your own. Thanks for tuning in.